All right. Here in the state of Nebraska, the law says that everyone is a mandated reporter. Does that apply to the disabled? I think that's a very good question, especially when it comes to mental illness. Mental illness is not a diagnosis. If you've got a physical illness, the actual physical illness itself is the diagnosis. The problem with the term mentally ill is that basically it blankets everyone who has been diagnosed with one of those subcategories. And by law, basically, they're all assumed to be schizophrenic. They are all treated as if they are schizophrenic. If they have to report a crime, the police are not going to listen. And then there's trauma response. When you've been through severe trauma and you're trying not to freak out, you're trying to explain things, and the cop just wants to keep talking over you. You have a lot to get out. They need to shut up and listen. Now, if you're a homeless male, it's even worse. If you're a homeless male, you can't turn in your predators at all. You just have to take it. And then being called mentally ill on top of it. And then if a cop does something wrong, because obviously if somebody accuses you of something, you're mentally ill, you must be guilty. Their word is worth more than yours. Your word don't mean nothing. And even with insurmountable evidence, you have to get people to look at it. Now, obviously, I've had a lot of people tell me, dude, I haven't been diagnosed with nothing and I couldn't do what you're doing. I couldn't go through what you're going through. I mean, I've got message upon message from so many people that just wasted my time. They just wanted to try to communicate in typing and then reinterpret everything. And that's a very big issue where I can't turn in actual threats against my life and actual assaults against my person. You guys can pretend like I might, and it's good enough. Mandated reporters. If you're called mentally ill and you can't go to the police, you have to go find somebody. Now you go find that somebody and you try to tell them. Well, if they don't hear anything you're saying, they got plausible deniability. So talking over you and telling you pretty words is a good fucking start. Oh, you just got to love yourself. I think the victim themselves should be considered a mandated reporter. Are the disabled not human beings? The reason that the disabled and homeless are the most victimized people in this country, that includes by police, civilians, all of you. And they can't even turn in their own abuse. And they come to the people that they're supposed to go to when they're abused. And those people blow them off, always. Mandated reporter laws in Colorado are different. Now, in those Natalie Bollinger groups, there's a lot of people that were in the one that I was given by Katie Cahill. A lot of those people, they had it on there. They were registered nurses and crap like that. Well, if they're registered nurses, the stuff that they saw on there, yeah, that's horrible. And the fact that many of them even took part in it, took part in the bullying and the harassing. One woman, Sarah Victoria Funderburg, she tried pretending that she was there from the Department of Children's Services or some crap like that. Now, I'm sorry, that is an absolute misquote. I don't remember exactly what it was. I think it was actually a teen services or something like that. But since she was on there engaging in that kind of crap, like you know, it needed to be reported. Mandated reporters in Nebraska, everyone that I told here about my abuse became a mandated reporter because it is so easy to abuse me simply by calling me mentally ill and pretending I'm schizophrenic. And with Scott DaCosta, the very man that I was turning in, did he write down on any of this paperwork that I was trying to turn him in? That I was trying to turn in Leslie Snell? That I was trying to turn in Robert Warnick? That I literally had to go to Sidney, Nebraska, to a motel to try to gather the evidence in a safe environment. I mean, the place is the literal only place that I had to stay in town at the time. There were two people who were very drunk and very much screaming at each other over Robert Warnick. So for me, yeah, I had to get out of there. This is only a couple of days after I've been assaulted by the guy, and I'm in Sidney, Nebraska. This guy has already stalked me on multiple occasions, and the cops didn't do nothing. Nothing. They didn't even go talk to the man. Not until after I was assaulted by Scott DaCosta and Nebraska State Trooper Lassen. And then all they wanted to do was take all of my evidence. Well, if there's evidence of crimes on there, we got to take it all. Well, I need help so that I have a copy of it because for some odd reason, cops keep bringing stuff back without a bunch of stuff on it or stuff that it has these little things on it that says that it's, God, what is it? I have the meeting that I had with Molly Smith from Sydney and Deputy Jared Hahn here in Chapel, Nebraska, who, by the way, is now a city council member. Scott DaCosta tried to basically pretend like he was no longer there and could not be pursued for his crimes. That's the thing. Scott DaCosta was telling me, hey, if you've got a problem with my deputies, bring it to me. I did, and he went out of his way to cover up for them. The Nebraska State Troopers, I mean, they knew that situation was going on in 2018. Obviously, there's videos in here with the Nebraska State Patrol that show that. But they didn't bother getting back to me until after I was assaulted by one of their own. And then they want to tell me at that point, they want to wishy-washy about whether or not they are or are not allowed to investigate it. Meanwhile, I've been told by the Nebraska Attorney General's office that they're the ones I need to go to have it investigated. All of these places keep on giving me the runaround. All these people who have actually made calls with me have done the same thing. Now, the problem is, none of their help is doing any good unless they speak out publicly. Unless they say loud and proud, yeah, Sean Schwartz is telling the truth. And so many people tell me that they're afraid. And so I record it. You can hear in the recording as people explaining that they're afraid. Then there's a difference between what I normally do and, of course, trying to record something while somebody knows they're being recorded. They're a lot more likely to be honest when they don't know they're being recorded. If those things aren't the truth that they were telling me, then why were they lying to me? I had to make my decisions based on what other people are telling me. There's also important information, like Shannon Alvarado could have told me she was an alcoholic before I went there. Or my old babysitter, Teresa Orn, she could have, instead of calling me up drunk off her ass like 3 or 4 times after Natalie died to tell me about her dead husband. Yes, I know about your dead husband, Teresa. I do. I was trying to show the truth. I was trying to get a safe environment. I was stuck in Denver, Colorado, homeless, after my face has been all over the news. They haven't found Natalie's killer. And, obviously that's a very unsafe situation. Obviously, it's going to remain a very unsafe situation until people acknowledge the fact that I told the truth about those things. A lot of people are pissed off that I posted up conversations that we had that they felt should have been private. No, those shouldn't have been private. Don't tell me anything you're not willing to tell the police. I tell everyone that. I try to record every moment of my day where there are other people around because you never know. A lot of times there's things that people know that they don't realize is important, but they never bother to listen to you explain why it's important. They just say, "Oh, well, I don't know nothing." You admitted that you know something. You admitted about 20 somethings that you know. 20 very important details that show that I was prevented from getting the help that I need over the blanket term of mentally ill, which is obviously, as I said to begin with, not a diagnosis. So when I went to anyone in Nebraska about the abuse I endured in Nebraska, and they blew me off instead of helping me with the evidence, as is my right. Obviously, I don't know how to do those things. That doesn't mean that people didn't commit a crime. Now, obviously, those papers represent court dates and appointments, and of course, trying to turn in people who are assaulting me, people who are threatening me, people who are harassing me. It's hospital paperwork. It's all of that stuff represents appointments and places that I was at, that I actually showed up at. People say you're not trying to get help. This is evidence of how much I have been trying to get help. Well, that's an interesting perspective. A friend of mine just got a hold of me on Facebook, and she typed, "My mind is utterly blown. I know that you care for Natalie. From my perspective, she deliberately set you up. She was saying one thing to you while telling others a different story." Right? Exactly. And that's the thing about being able to send this stuff. It would be a lot easier just to show her in person, but we're trying, you know. Um, she typed, "I'm sorry, so sorry that you've been through this. I apologize for not being available to help you during this time." Well, you know what? Even from a distance, I made myself available to help her. I understand that there's a lot of stuff in people's lives that prevents them from doing the right thing. The main one is fear. There's a lot of people who said that they would help me, but their husband or wife or whoever told them not to. There's a lot of things that I don't know how to do. If you teach me how to do it and I get some practice at it, I'm generally pretty good at it. I get better at something than most people do pretty darn quick. I mean, within 24 hours of, thank you, within 24 hours of me being able to take screenshots, I mean, I had a lot of them up. Now, there's a group that was started right at the very beginning when all this happened, and that group involved a lot of people that they weren't interested in actually helping. They had good intentions, and we were trying to get me to a safe place. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But the truth needed to be shown. How we're treated when we try to turn in our predators. If we go in with another homeless person, that's a good way to get two homeless people arrested. Now, I've gone into these places to show them in person, taken my evidence in person to many of these places. When it ultimately, when it got to the point that there was more people being killed, not just Natalie. I mean, there's a lot of deaths in Boulder that nobody cares about. Daniel Kitlitz, for example. There's a guy who goes by Cinderblock, and then there's another guy named Aaron Mayville. He goes by Brain Damage. Both of those guys were there the morning that Daniel died. I woke them both up. Daniel was a good friend of mine. We called him Shady Dan, but he wasn't shady. He was good to us. Now, obviously, if it's not happening to them, it's no big deal. A lot of the stuff that I've been able to show people that I've gone through, my so-called friends and family never bothered to take a look. They never fucking, how do I explain this? They didn't bother to take the time on their own to find out what the hell was going on. This guy Byron McCoy typed, "You got friends, my guy." Certainly. Um, my sister's here today, and we're starting to go through stuff. I needed to wind down. I was up all night trying to do some damage control. Yes, Byron McCoy, I understood what you were typing. I usually say what it is people type exactly. It's a habit I got into when I was first started reading. Obviously, the more frustrated I am, the more difficult it is for me to get my words together. The less safe that I am, the more difficult it is to get what I'm trying to say out. I need to feel safe in the environment that I'm in. And the way the cops treat us, and yeah, pretty much all cops, there might be a few. That's something that Brandon Jepson told me. He said, you can't blame 750,000 law enforcement officers in America for the crimes of a few. Well, you absolutely can if they're covering up for those crimes or if those officers are treating you the same way. Homelessness basically wipes away the Constitution altogether. Most of you guys complain about how the Constitution is gone. You guys have more constitutional rights than the homeless and the disabled. Now, there's special rights for the disabled, and I am 100% against special rights. Now, here's why. Affirmative action, that's special rights. There's a lot of areas where there might not be a whole lot of white people that you can hire, or might not be a whole lot of black people that you can hire. And also, instead of hiring someone necessarily on their personal merits, now you have to fill a quota of colors. Um, so then we get people who are going to use that to fan the flames of racism. There's a lot of pretty famous black folks, a couple of them in the entertainment industry. You've heard them speak out about this, about how they had to take their companies and move them offshore. People want to judge me based on the parts where I'm screaming, where I am literally screaming for help. That is literally what that is. I mean, I am so frustrated from going through this, from trying to find someone in person who can actually go through this, not somebody who's going to be wishy washy and say, well, I might be able to, I might not. Well, I have to find somebody else then. That's just as simple as it is. Um, Byron McCoy type, that makes sense. Does having your sister around help that? Um, it depends on who's here with her. Um, I get overwhelmed pretty easily. That's an autistic trait. When there's multiple people all talking at once, I don't understand what any of y'all are saying. It's not that you're talking a foreign language or that my brain translates it into a foreign language. It's that there's two people talking at once. And I get sensory overload from that. pretty easily, pretty quickly. And usually when I explain this to people, the first thing they do is pack in the sardines. Another thing is, if there's people between me and the door, I'm scared then too. And that comes from a lot of the things that I had to go through growing up, and also my dad. I knew if my dad was standing in the doorway, I was going to get some smackings. He was going to stand there in the doorway, leaning on this side and putting his hand this way. And then he'd get energetic and he'd start doing this thing. And my dad never beat the living hell out of me. I mean, as far as, size to weight ratio, for surely, you just don't do those to kids. He'd get mad about something, and he drank rum and coke at the time, and he'd get to lecturing me about something, and pretty soon the lecture would turn into his hand doing like this. And then when he was doing this with his hand, I knew that his voice was going to raise. And what he'd do is he'd sucker punch me right in the gut, right? So here I am, out of oxygen. I'm doing a thing, You guys have had the air knocked out of you. And my dad's just continuing to talk. I wasn't allowed to defend myself. Not there, not anywhere. The term mentally ill makes you the easiest person to victimize because of special rights. Because with those special rights that are supposed to protect you as a quote unquote mentally ill person, there's the fact that the blanket that they want to put into the law books basically wipes all of that out. If you got a broken leg, you got a broken leg. Now, here's the difference between the mentally ill stuff and having a broken leg. If you go into a hospital and you have a broken leg and the cop tells them, hey, he's got a broken arm, they're not going to write down that he's got a broken arm. They can see it's the leg that's broken. They might write down possible broken arm and go get some x-rays, but if they can plainly see that the leg is what's broken, the cop didn't tell him the leg was broken, did he? So you're in there for a physical problem. But the very specific physical problem that you have is what needs to be treated. In a situation like this, everybody keeps making every excuse why it's everybody else's job to do it. Oh, well, it's not criminal, it's civil. Oh, well, now it's not civil, it's criminal. Meanwhile, they're getting away with this because I don't have someone in person. And, I've got only a couple of days to try to get this stuff done. And I was up all night and I got a lot done. I did cry like a little girl. And a lot of you are going to go, man, that's fucking sexist. That ain't right. And I agree. I can attest to the fact that there are a lot of women out there who can take a lot of abuse and not cry. And I've known some girls that have taken a lot of abuse and not cried. But what we're dealing with here, it's not that I haven't tried to turn it in. It's not like I haven't tried to show evidence. I had to try to show it on the internet because I didn't have anyone to actually go in with me. Now, there's a few people that said that they did, but did they really? If you go back to the Natalie Bollinger case and the fact that it's a murder case, they're not allowed to destroy that evidence. We can get at least those recordings and show I was trying to help these guys. There were legitimate reasons why I was looking at Ted Bollinger and Tim Beeson. But then there's also the fact that, yeah, Natalie was on heroin. She needed help. I've gone through years of abuse because the cops who blew me off to begin with, they knew that what they were doing was wrong. Most of these people, they're angry that their stuff is up on the internet with their personal business. You know what? It would be up there without your personal business if you'd have spoke out on your own instead of looking the other way. Now, I've gone through and done my best to prove everything to you the best that I can without giving out personal information because then people are going to try to take it down. There's also the sheer quantity of harassment that I have had to deal with, and I have shown it. I have to show it on YouTube, trying to turn it into the corrupt ass individuals working here. That's not going to work. They're friends. They're going to stick up for each other, and they're going to make lies and BS to prevent me from showing the truth. And I tried to get a hold of the media after they spun the yarn that they did. I had a lot of people that were literally harming me, and they still do this to this day. The abuse isn't just what people have done to me in this town, it's the fact that no matter where I go, I have to deal with people who are going to be jerks. And they want to take it out on the easiest person to take it out on, and that person will not be allowed to turn it in. It's a good thing I'm not an alcoholic. And see you, that's something I noticed. Them college kids go pick on a drunk homeless person. And they try instigating a fight, but the dude's drunk and he's like, "Ah, oh, man, I don't want to be like that. I'm just a happy guy." But after 20 or 30 minutes of pushing the guy, yeah, the dude is sick of it. He wants you to go away. He wants you to leave him alone. Them college kids ain't nice. Some of them are. I tried to turn in what was happening to me. I had to find other people to go in with me. Molly Smith didn't know a whole heck of a lot. She knows a lot more about my situation, though, because of our interaction since then. But I started going through all the paperwork. I had to send a bunch of other stuff to Marcia Estrada last night. So now I'm finally going through and sending this stuff to her. And also, I'm going to have to make photocopies of all this stuff that's handwritten. I'm going to have to try to free up some space on my computer so that I can download more stuff and then print them off. I mean, a lot of these people who are mad at me because I posted our conversations in public, I tried to turn that stuff into the police. They wrote letters. They didn't, of course, write about the stuff that they knew about the situation. They just didn't care. They were one to do the whole typey thing. Like, yes, you know things. You know things that are important. You know details that are important. Whether or not you're willing to admit it, or whether or not you're willing to even hear it, that's not my choice. You guys show, all of my friends showed that they were okay with people doing this to me. I was trying to show them what was going on before Natalie was killed. I was trying to show just about everybody what was going on. I had explained it nicely on Facebook on multiple occasions before Natalie was killed. Like it took a lot of abuse for me to start screaming. And then there's the fact that pretty much the only positive friend that I had here at the time was my computer. And that's what I got now. And a lot of people want to get angry or aggravated with me because I say things that they don't agree with. A lot of people say stuff like, "Well, I helped you." Really, you didn't. Shannon Alvarado, obviously she knew a lot of stuff that she didn't come forward about publicly. And I'm like, you need to come forward with it in public, okay? Here's the thing, the cops, if you're going to tell me the cops aren't going to listen to you because you're from a different state, you need to state that loud and clear so that that evidence is out there, so that the public can see that. The shit with Kara Johnson Miles, were you fucking with me, Shannon, or is that shit true? And that's another major issue with having to try to get help from an alcoholic. Sure, they're going to send me that stuff, but when I go into the police, well, how do we know you didn't write that? So people abused me until I literally had to commit crimes. That was in August of 2018. I literally had to commit crimes to try to get someone to look at that evidence. Because of people who had repeatedly told me that they would go in. People like Mandy Hughes. The day that we were supposed to go in, after she's told me all sorts of stuff about her personal life, and she wants to pretend like I'm some sort of a bad person because she didn't keep her word. She claimed that she had a warrant, so she couldn't go in with me. Now, this is like 7 months. I'm like, hey, Miss Peaches, go in with me and tell the truth, you know? Oh, I'm gonna. But she didn't. And I had to save the evidence that the stories that I told were true, that I was being honest. Every person in those groups that was from Colorado and had a nurse's degree and saw the literal threats against my life, they're mandated reporters. When I was a child, I had zero rights, zero observed rights. Just like when you're called mentally ill. If you are called mentally ill, then you are disabled and should have the right of a disabled person. The antagonization by the guards everywhere that I went, nearly everywhere I went, it was not okay. And in most of the hospitals, there's one of the staff who works there who's like, you know what? You know the guy. All of you guys know one person at the hospital who comes back and, he talks about the retard he had to babysit today. Well, in Scotts Bluff, that was a guy named Ruben. Hi, Parky. There's a lady named Parky. I'm assuming it's a lady. I'm sorry if I get that wrong. Titation. Um, the police started off with just not caring, not observing your rights. Well, not observing mine. I wasn't person enough for them to do that. When I have to go in to talk to them when I'm by myself, I have to deal with the fact that I already know that they're not going to listen. I've already gone to these same cops before. And then the Nebraska State Patrol telling me in repeated phone calls that are actually on this YouTube channel that I literally have to go to the predators that I'm trying to turn in order to turn in the people that they're ignoring the crimes from. It's not that it's not perfectly 100% obvious. There's just so much of it. And with me constantly having to move around from place to place, most places having to stay with abusive people. And sure, they might not be abusing me. I mean, Shannon Alvarado While I was there, you know, it was her boyfriend that she was screaming at the whole time, but they're screaming every night. Now I've got Rick here on my YouTube channel screaming at me too. That's recorded. People, they love that you tell the truth until you tell the truth about them. A lot of these people, they had reasons that they couldn't come forward, but wanted to keep on pretending, hey, I'd help you if I could for like 6 months, 8 months. Well, you can. It starts by speaking up. People keep want to pretend that because Natalie Bollinger's killer was found, that people stopped the abuse. No, the cops abused the fuck out of me. And some of those cops literally killed people because my voice was not heard because of the term mentally ill. Now, if you got a broken leg and the cop says you got a broken arm, the hospital is going to treat you for a broken leg. They'll check for a broken arm. Your arm's not broken. They're not going to treat it. There's no reason to. But when a cop takes you in and says that you're schizophrenic, they write that down. They assume he's telling the truth, and nobody there listens to you. Why? Because you must be mentally ill. You must not have any idea what's going on. You must be too stupid for words. Now, I've also noticed that there are very, very many people who are definitely too stupid for words. People who claim that they're professionals and they're able to do this and they're able to do that, and they do more harm than good. These people didn't want to come forward, so I came forward for them. I recorded our conversations and I posted those conversations up. And yeah, they want them gone. I get it. You know what? If you hadn't been so busy talking about yourself, your personal shit wouldn't be up there. And of course, none of it's protected. None of it's protected by YouTube. Privacy violations. A lot of people complained. Well, it doesn't violate their policies. It also does not violate Nebraska state law. And then there's the fact that so much of this is on the internet. I'm staring at this screen, I'm getting a headache, but I got stuff that I got to do. Telling the truth is important. When a cop can blow you off until people are dead and then commit crimes to hide the fact that you tried to turn it in, I mean, they're now victimizing a disabled person, but I'm not disabled enough to actually get help. So I got to fill out the developmental disability paperwork. And what's that going to do? Obviously, according to everyone that I have spoken to, it's a bad idea. You'll get a state fucking person and they don't give a shit about you. They do what the state says or they lose their job. And then there's the guardianship stuff. I have guardianship papers here. I have that paperwork. And people say, oh, you don't want to do that because you'll never have any rights. They're absolutely right. If I get somebody who's not willing to do their job, well, according to what the American public thinks, you guys think that it's their job to help me. You think it's their job to see that the right thing is done, but you see how mandated reporters treat me in this state, in every state. Like it doesn't matter. Like I don't matter. I try to tell them what's going on, and all of these mandated reporters are defeatists. It's not going to do any good. It's not going to do any good. And the reasons that they explain that it's not going to do any good, they're the same reasons that I explain to y'all that it doesn't do any good. But somehow it means something from them because you assume that I'm schizophrenic because of a label of mentally ill. The problem with blanketing everyone with the mentally ill thing is that you can't talk to anybody. You really can't. When you have abuse that's going on and you try to turn it in without somebody there and present, and I am going to say this 100 times more, even if you want to get pissed off and say I repeat myself, I've got to. These points are important. If you don't have someone to go in with you, you are going to get treated like you're schizophrenic. And when they blow you off, if you have a panic attack, which obviously, if someone was there with you, you wouldn't even be having that panic attack. Not like that anyway. If you had someone that you knew was in your corner, you feel much safer.
I'm agreeing with you.
Right? So, we've looked at this mandated reporter stuff. Um, I'm going to show it one more time, though. All right. Who is considered a mandatory reporter in Nebraska? Yes, I'm reading it upside down. In the state of oh, sorry. I'll do it this way. We want you guys to be able to see it too. In the state of Nebraska, everyone is a mandated reporter. You do not have to be certain that abuse has occurred to make a report. If a child tells you they have been hurt physically, emotionally, sexually, there are things you can do to help. You know what more often than not happens in those situations? They give the victim the choice of staying there with their predator because it's usually their dad or their stepdad, or they lock the kid up. Now, when you're an adult, it's even worse because nobody cares. There are people who care about kids. A lot more people care about kids than adults, obviously. And even kids have to go through this Hades. I often disagree with one of the statistics. The homeless and the disabled are the most abused people in this country because of the assumption that they're not worthy or not human enough to be heard. Sorry,
No.
ADOS. In the state of Colorado, the mandated reporter laws are different. There, you have to be, like I said, I'm real big on showing evidence. And like I said, there's a lot of stuff I can't show. Architect Sean, the thing about these people is they just love to bash you because they know you don't have a very good history with the police. I had a great history with the police, with the exception of them being douchebags when you're homeless. I mean, this isn't the first time that I or any of the homeless people that I know have been railroaded by the system. You're easy to manipulate. All they got to do is go, oh, well, he doesn't have the money to bail himself out, and he hasn't anybody that's going to bail him out. This is easy. He's not going to be able to defend himself from inside of the jails. Yay. And then it's a running joke when you try to turn them in. Oh, well, you can call an attorney when you get out. Attorneys don't give a shit about the homeless either. They know that the rest of the country don't care. The only way to get people to actually do something is obviously have someone there who does care about the truth, does care about showing what's going on and protecting the victim. Now, I was victimized, obviously, well before Natalie was ever killed. Obviously, I was being victimized over her rumors and by her druggy friends. All right. I'm trying not to ADOS here, folks. Let's see. Parky type, they're afraid of the truth. Type, yes, I agree. Are you able to come out with this information on YouTube? I've come out with most of it on YouTube. You know, I mean, how many times does a person who is a witness to this have to be recorded? How many should I have to put up? You know, people did some pretty messed up things to me. They wanted to do the same thing that the cops do, the same thing that everyone does. I'm sorry, I can't help you. I can't help you. I want to. I want to. Oh, I'm 400 miles away. I can't help you. Oh, I'm worried about my kids, you know. Come forward about that shit. You're allowing an innocent man to be harmed because you won't come forward over things that you shouldn't have to be afraid of. None of these people should have ever had to be afraid for their kids. None of these people should have ever been harassed by the cops. But because I'm called mentally ill, they go to whoever else is in the house, and that's usually somebody who doesn't give a fuck or they're a bunch of fucking cowards. I need people to get the word out. I mean, I've shown the evidence, my hospital paperwork from multiple places on this very YouTube. It shows I'm autistic. It shows that when I was in Virginia, yes, I was dehydrated. A lot of the messages between me and Natalie Bollinger are on here. The ones on that flip phone that I was finally able to get. A lot of them are on here. The stuff that she was typing to me at the time. There's also the messages from Natalie and I when we were friends. Obviously, while I was still in Virginia, we were still friends. Our messages show that she wanted to come hang out with me on my birthday. Her and her sister both wanted to. Now, Natalie, we didn't get hardly any time alone. There was always somebody else there. Now, me and her sister spent a lot of time alone. The thing is, I was there because Natalie was threatening to kill herself because I wasn't there fast enough. I mean, all of the stuff that I've shared time and again, yeah, absolutely, we were friends. A lot of people wanted to pretend like I was stalking her by taking those pictures. No, that was when they took me to the pagoda at Norfolk. That was the first time that I had ever heard Miss Shelley's voice. They were trying to convince her to move to Virginia as well. They were trying to convince me to get a place there. Alicia was actively looking for an apartment for me to stay in, and I'm like, hey, I don't want to do that, you know. You guys and Maddie Boa, when I was at my lowest, Natalie and Maddie fucking rescued me. They saved me from that shit. Maddie Boa came to visit me every single day. You know, when I hurt my back and I had that meltdown from the police in Boulder and how horrible it was Natalie who helped, well, like she said, she did help me with rides. And Maddie Boa was at least somebody to talk to. She came to check in on me almost every day. And usually it wasn't for very long, but at least I had two people who were treating me like a human being. Whereas the people at Starbucks, they started not treating me decent after years and years of knowing me and knowing who I am and what I did. I was trying to get help, and God, I was treated like shit. And they don't understand that. They're like, "Oh, well, Sean, I tried to help you." No, you talked over me. You told me pretty words, and that didn't help. I needed help stopping the abuse, and you looked away. And later on, many of you treated me like I was a bad guy. And you know what? I didn't want to put NB's stuff up here. That's Brenda Dickinson. but I had to. This is a friend I've known a lot of years. She just messaged me. Oh my God, that is so long. It says, let's see. While I was reading the comments on your first video about Natalie, I followed a link to a YouTube channel, Anna Solves. Yes, that's one of the most recent ones that I had people happy, more than happy, to threaten my life over. Um, she typed, "This is what I commented on that sham of a true crime report." Mandy said, um, 18 seconds ago, watching this video made me sick. While you did relay the truth of what happened to Natalie, you really glossed over the injustice done to Sean. Yes, you touched on the solid proof Sean had showing his side of the story, showing that he was given the impression that Natalie was his friend. She was my friend. On this YouTube channel, there are messages from my flip phone, her saying she loves me a lot, and her sister doing the same thing as well. I mean, we were friends. We actually were friends. Um, she types, then you go into the conversation Natalie's acquaintance provided to dispute Sean's side, his proof. If someone is telling a person one thing, then saying something conflicting and contradicting to others, it is obvious that person is mentally unwell. Rather than focus on Natalie's past, which played into her choices and behaviors, you play his name and has mental health problems without proof shows that you are not committed to providing true crime content in an ethical and compassionate manner. It is evident that Natalie took advantage of a man who was vulnerable. She played on his emotions, and when he started calling out her family for abuse they inflicted upon her, she reacted in a very abusive and dishonest manner, trying to protect herself and her abusers. After all, they were her family. She attacked the very person who had been trying to help her. She projected on Sean what had actually happened to her at the hands of adults that were supposed to protect her. It has been over 4 years, and still there are people who are running with the homeless, mentally ill, autistic labels that were put on Sean, using it to justify further abuse against him. Your video plays right into their agenda. You could use your platform to tell the truth, to help a man who continues to be abused and traumatized because of the actions of a young woman who is mentally ill, suffered from addiction. You don't seem to know or seem to want to mention how Natalie's own father sexually abused her, started her on using heroin and other drugs, and forced her to sell drugs on the streets of Boulder, Colorado, and orchestrated a campaign against a person who was trying to help her to the best of his ability. She was a very disturbed person. You do not understand or even have knowledge of what life is like for people experiencing homelessness. The same authorities that are supposed to help, serve, and protect are not safe for those living on the streets. Natalie would not want to get help after all the failure she experienced through the system that was supposed to protect her. When every safety net, every resource, every possible support fails a person, desperation is all that is left. Instead of making a scapegoat out of Sean, use your platform to expose the system that is a failure. Natalie was not a victim in her own death. Yes, many people in her life failed her by not getting her help. Yes, her own family abused and victimized her. But she was the one who set up Sean, manipulated those around her, and orchestrated her own death. It is so evident that you have not done the proper research. Again, the video made me sick. A lot of people were afraid to come forward. A lot of them. I made our emoji a little fairy. You know how it's usually a thumbs up. I don't like that. Just annoys me. But fairies are cool. Um, I tried to go to these people for help. Many of them promised to do so. There's a reporter named Jennifer Jazowski, and then there's also that guy Josh. If you've seen the Sword and Scale episodes, Um, his friend Josh was the deal that I had made with both of these people is that they were going to help me to get a safe place where I could show the truth, and that they were not going to release anything until they found Natalie's killer, and that they were going to turn it in to the police, turn in our recording with the police, and they didn't. And there's a lot of head games that I still have to deal with people playing with me today. I have to be afraid to leave the house. Meanwhile, I have literally thousands and thousands of recordings with all of these places I'm told to call. Many of them I'm calling. And later on, there's places that I called that the proof is in our phone calls. You can hear in the most recent phone calls them saying that obviously I didn't try to turn anything in because nobody left a note. I'd never called because I didn't leave a note. And then, of course, there's easily 50 to 60 calls prior to that to that exact place trying to turn these things in. A lot of people that are mad at me, Tony and Kinga and Derek Parrish, and of course Anna, they're mad that I put their words up here for the world to see, that I did show the truth, that it wasn't just me saying that I wasn't the only witness to that. So they had to separate me from the ability to talk to the witnesses, to get their help, to let them know what's going on. My own public pretenders didn't even make a passing attempt at trying to do that. Now, it's obvious that the police in all of these situations did not do their jobs. None of the services that we were told to go to when we were being abused did their jobs. I am expected to do it all myself without the means to do it myself. And then I got people that, just finally realized how screwed up of a situation it is. It's one thing when it's happening to somebody else. It's another thing when it's happening to you. It's one thing when you're, listening to somebody else saying, "Hey, I'm having to deal with death threats and assaults and all of this," and then it's a completely other to see that, yeah, these people weren't just targeting me; they were targeting the other people that I was saying they were targeting. Meanwhile, I gotta see stuff from William Barr and Leslie Snell and crap saying that their families are afraid and I threaten their families. And there's no evidence of me threatening their families. There's no evidence of me ever claiming that I would harm them in any of the ways that they're pretending. All I'm doing is showing the truth of the situation. And because of the mentally ill tag, I've been prevented from it. This everybody with the mentally ill tag is schizophrenic, so we can't listen to any of them bullshit. Yeah, you know what? Everybody's got more rights than that. Everybody. And then there's people like this lady here who was a part of a lot of it and had her own reasons for not coming forward, and a lot of other people who had their own reasons why they were too scared to come forward. And it's a matter of getting the help, sending it to someone who's actually going to do something with it, because obviously I can't just send it to the cops. Somebody has to be there to verify that that is what I am doing, and that person has to be there for my safety. Everything that I did that people wanted to pretend I was a bad person for, these are things that I literally was pushed to because I didn't have that actual help in person. I had people that would show up and claim they were going to and then talk nonstop about themselves. Like, hey, if we only have an hour or 2 hours to get this done, let's stop and let's get on it. And obviously, I've been talking for quite a while, but this is a very big subject. This is a very big problem. Someone who is mentally ill can't be a mandated reporter. It says, according to the laws in Nebraska, everyone is a mandated reporter. If I told you about it, these people say, hey, Sean, yeah, I've always known you to be an honest man. Well, then when I told you about the things being done to me, why didn't you help me to turn it in? On many of these websites, because my friends were being like that, I had to post everything that I could on the internet. Meanwhile, there's a lot of technical help that people said that they knew how to do and were going to help me with, and like for 4 years worth of this. And, of course, I get there, and if they're too drunk to teach me how to do that, or they don't know what the fuck they're doing, they were bullshitting me. That's not my fault, but that prevents me from doing the things I need to do. All I'm trying to do is show the truth. Now, I've showed you the truth of other people's words who, yeah, they wrote their letters, and some of them actually went in with me to these situations. I needed them there as a witness, but they didn't go with me to turn it in. And then because of safety issues with me being in Colorado with that going on, or anywhere else for that matter, I was unable to coordinate with these people in an effective manner. If you're still in the house with somebody, you're living with somebody who's trying to help you, there's a lot of times where they can stop intermittently and help you. But when you've got to have somebody, spend 20, 30 bucks or more to try to travel to come see you, and that travel time and then traveling back in order to look at this stuff, or you have to do that. For all of the things that I'm saying, to try to cherry pick little bits and pieces to say, oh, well, he's threatening this person or he's threatening that person. That's what Nebraska Christianity truly is: passing judgment and never bothering to find the truth or even look at it. Like when I went to Pastor Rod Wright, I like the guy, I do. But between looking at the evidence that I had, or just assuming the way he was told was the truth, he assumed what he was told was the truth. That's just stupid. I consider him an intelligent guy. Now, in another state, he would be a mandated reporter because of his position with the church. However, this is the state of Nebraska, so that doesn't matter. He is a mandated reporter either way. This is not an environment where I can work on what I need to. I have to worry too much about interrupting other people's lives, including their family lives, and that is not okay. A lot of these people that offered to help, they're like, I got kids. Are you fine with kids? Yeah, I'm great with kids. Kids fucking love me. The problem is that the kids aren't a problem, the parents are. The kids were not a problem in any of those situations, the parents were. In the situation where I was at Ryan Ingersoll's and Amy's kids were there being horrible, yeah, they're probably close to the worst behaved kids I'd ever run into, and I'm glad that they got a foster home with some loving parents. I'm going to end this video. Please get the word out. I mean, I know it's a lot of digging and it's a lot of conversations, and it's also a lot of me having panic attacks and screaming for help. Sometimes because my back hurts, sometimes because I got a headache, sometimes both, and sometimes because people are just plain cruel to me. I mean, it wasn't the bullies that made this so horrible. It was my supposed loved ones, my friends and my family, looking away, that allowed it to continue to this day. And then I get to hear from other people about what these people supposedly did for me. Really, I was there, they weren't. What could they have possibly done if they weren't there? What could they possibly have done to help in a situation that they were ignoring? Like Kimberly Vollmer saying that my mom tried to help after Natalie died. No, she didn't. She didn't go to court with me. She wouldn't even listen to what I had to say. She wanted to bitch about trivial shit. Obviously, me and Natalie lived very similar lives. We grew up very similar lives. We have very similar parents. The difference is, I was not molested by my parents. My dad, never in a million years. My mom, nope, she's not going to molest me either. My stepdad, Scott, no, he's not going to molest me, not ever. And that right there, that is my worst sin. When I was 6 years old, I was in Centennial Peaks. That's a actual mental hospital, not a behavioral health center, which is basically a knockoff. Um, and while I was there, I had said that Scott molested me. He'd picked me up by my genitals. Now, obviously, that didn't happen, but he had to go through a lot of BS over it. And it's not right to do that to a person. I was just mad at him. I mean, I can't see my mom. I'm getting abused before I get to Centennial Peaks. I'm in the foster care system before that. I don't get to see my mom, but Scott does. I'm being abused in these places and being fed pills that are making me, well, more pills means more side effects. More side effects means more stuff that they can diagnose you with. The more stuff they diagnose you with, the more pills they